Hi everybody, this is Jack Benedict and welcome to the Coach Paul Tortorella Shows. We talk IUP Crimson Hawks football, the team with a 3-0 record now with a 59-17 drubbing of Lock Haven last Saturday. And we'll talk about this week's game coming up. But Coach, first of all, let's talk about the game that just concluded here a few days ago. And again, great start. You got out to a 28-0 lead. And so this is something could become a habit, would be a good habit, wouldn't it?
Well, we hope so. I thought the first half, obviously when you go 6 for 6 offensively and score 6 touchdowns, it's a pretty good half, and we were hitting on all cylinders. And we played pretty well defensively, other than one play that came out of there in the run game, giving up 3 points. So it was a solid first half, and the kicking game was really big again this week.
Yeah, exactly. Lenny Williams, we talk about him first of all. Sets a new career record. He accounted for 4 touchdowns. He runs for 1. He passes for 3, and he's got 89 in his career of a combination of things. But you and I have talked before about you can see the experience now that he's got it going on all cylinders, even off the field. I can see it in the he's working in the offices and everything tirelessly.
Well, he's become a very confident player. He was a guy that has always been a good player. Okay, he's becoming a great player now, and he's very confident with the offense. A lot of experience. He's back to running the ball some, but I'll tell you what, he's throwing the ball as good as he's ever thrown the ball. I mean, he is. You could probably count on one hand this year how many throws were not good throws, and he's had some great throws like he had Saturday. So we're pitching and catching really well. He's doing a good job when he has to run the ball, and he's just running the offense. He's had a great first 3 games.
One of the guys that got his first career touchdown last week was Miles Williamson. So this week it was Zach Kelly,
right?
Another guy that chipped in. These are players that don't get a lot of notoriety, but they are a big part of the program, aren't they?
Yes, I mean as long as you're in the program, and we always talk about if you stay, you play, and Williamson, Zach Kelly, waited their turn. Now finally seeing some game action offensively, and we don't change our offense. If you're the boundary receiver and we got a fade called into the boundary, it's probably going to you, and that's what it was with. Miles again this week, and then we hit Kelly on the post. We had hit Dom earlier on the same play.
McNeil.
Earlier in the game off of play action. Their safety was really flying downhill in the run game, so the post was really hard for the corner to cover by himself. So we hit that play actually twice for touchdowns, one to Dom and one to Zach. And of course the last one with Zach was Javon Davis, first touchdown pass. So that was nice to see also.
Yeah, exactly. The true freshman got a couple of his first touchdown passes, many more to come. We have talked about the offensive line. It's been solid for you for many years, and again this year. But you need a few more bodies, don't you? And then when Jeff Arnold got banged up a little bit, what's the situation with the offensive line?
Jeff will be okay. He played, and then we took him out in the second half. We're banged up a little bit. Joe Peterson won't play again this week, but the other 6 or 7 that we've been using early in games should be okay. We have a way of moving a few guys around if we do have a guy go down. We've got a couple guys that can play a couple different positions. Colin McAllister can go to center if we need be. So we're not as deep as we were last year, but we do have a little bit of flexibility.
Is that something, Tort, that you look for when you're recruiting offensive linemen, versatility?
Yeah, it is. If you got a guy that can snap the ball, he can probably play just about anywhere in the offensive line, especially center and both guard positions, because center's the toughest position. So if you can play that, you could probably play either guard position. We do have a guard in Doberman that could go out to tackle. So we do have a little Rocco can play both guard positions. So we have enough flexibility, but we'd like to have a little more depth.
Maybe never realized at the time that Rocco, when they said that he had another year, how much that was going to help. Because, well, like you're saying, we're looking at the number of bodies, and he is versatile there for you.
Well, we had 8 or 9 different guys start games for us last year. So, you know, obviously Jerron Cyril's graduated. We got Rocco back. So, you know, it's just we don't quite have the numbers that we had last year, but we at least have some flexibility. And when we get Joe back, we should be okay.
Yeah. Well, you got the running game going some, and that was something that you had worked hard on all week, I know.
Right. We have to run the ball. I mean, if we want to get to where we want to go, we have to be able to line up and run the football. It opens up the pass game with play action and misdirection. So, and then when you have the ability to run the quarterback, that makes it also an added dimension that's tough for defenses to stop. But, you know, our bread and butter is running the football.
Yeah, yeah. You know, I think it was on the post-game show you mentioned you only gave up 17 points, that you weren't totally pleased with the defense. What did you see when you went back and looked at the film?
Well, in the second half, Lockhaven does a couple things with motion and unbalanced, and they do a couple things that are a little unconventional, and it was not a problem at all in the first half with our starters. In the second half, we came a little bit unglued with our perimeter a little bit, with the second team guys in there not adjusting to the motion and the shifting. A couple times we were out of position. So we were a little, you know, they're going up against the #1 offense. So, you know, they're going to make some first downs and move the ball, but we just don't like the mental errors and the not being lined up. That's what we're trying to get corrected with the second team.
Yeah. You had to be pleased with the special teams.
Oh, they've been great all year. Our return game is what was not great last year, but has become really good this year with the addition of Carter and Walls, and then Geisinger had a punt return that got called back, but it got called back to the 20-yard line. So we've had a lot of big plays this year in our return game. Our kick coverage has been pretty good. Our punter's been really good. So, you know, we actually got a rough, well, they didn't call it roughing, they called it running into them. So it gave us like a 4th and a half yard, and we decided to go for it to really kind of set the tempo and, you know, kind of instill our guys like we're going to run the football. And we went for it on 4th and a half yard on our own 40-yard line, but we wanted to prove a point there, and it worked out.
Mercyhurst is next up, and of course now we start within the division. Do you notice any difference when you play a team within your division than out of division?
Well, you know more about them. You know, we haven't played Millersville for a while. We haven't played Lockhaven for a while. We had only played Ashland one other time. You know, you play Mercyhurst every year. So, you know, we're over there this morning in our meetings talking about things that Mercyhurst tried against us 4 years ago. You know, and what they did last year and what they did the last time we played them at home. And we reverted back to 6, 7 years ago because they run what they run offensively. They haven't changed their offense or they've changed their defense a little bit with a new defensive coordinator, but Marty Schatzel, the head coach, runs the offense, and he's been there forever, and they're still running a lot. They have some little tweaks, but they're still basically running a lot of the same things they have been running, and, you know, you get good at it. So there's difference in the familiarity. The style of play is different. You know, Mercyhurst will line up with 2 backs with a tight end and try to run the ball. I mean, they'll run power, they'll run ISO, which, you know, the last 2 weeks we didn't see really any of that. So the style of play and the familiarity would be the 2 different things that we're going to see this week.
Now, when you say they've changed up the defense a little bit, specifically, where do you see that?
Well, in the past, they've been a 3-down, 3-man front, 3-3 stack team, and they played it pretty much the whole game. Now, with a new coordinator last year, they're playing probably just as much 4-down as 3-down. They're moving the front a lot of stunning, changing up the coverages. They'll play, you know, 1 high safety. They'll play a 2 high safety. They'll play read coverage. So they've really added on to what they still do play their 3-down, but they've really added on and played a lot of even front and stun a lot up front and changed their coverages more than they ever have.
What did you see when you viewed the Mercyhurst Bloomsburg game? They won that game 14-10.
Well, it was a tough game. Both teams are very similar. They both like to run the ball, both get in 2-back sets, play with a tight end. It was a back and forth game, which we knew it would be. Bloom had a punt return called back, that obviously hurt them. And Mercyhurst ran back a punt to Bloom's like 5-yard line late in the game that led to the score that gave them the lead. And they went for it on 4th and a half yard, and they actually fumbled the snap, but the quarterback got in the end zone for the winning touchdown with about 3 minutes to go in the game. And then Bloom came back and got the ball down inside of Mercyhurst's 10-yard line, had a chance to win it with a pass in the end zone on the last play, but Mercyhurst played it well and knocked it out of the end zone. So it was a close game. Two teams that are very similar in how they play. Mercyhurst is very sound. They won't get a lot of penalties. They're very disciplined. They don't turn the ball over a lot. They're somewhat like Ashland in that respect, that they're not going to give you the game. You're going to have to go and earn it. And the last 2 times we've played them, we were in a dogfight both games.
Yeah. You know, with Hall of Fame weekend coming up, there are 4 guys who are going into the Hall of Fame that represent IUP in football. Joe Bellissimo back in the mid-'60s, Brian Ironman, and of course he played late in the '90s and into the early 2000s, Joey Flora, Carmelo Ocasio. It's so good that, you know, at one time, it's hard to believe, it's been a little over 20 years, but at one time IUP did not have this Hall of Fame, and finally those powers that be, and thanks to those people that put it together, because this brings back some of the family, doesn't it?
Absolutely, and we've had so many good players. When you've won as many games as we've won here in our program, you know, the reason is we've got good players, and they should get the recognition that they deserve. And you know, I start to feel a little old when 3 of those guys were in the early 2000s and late 90s, early 2000s. All 3 of the guys, that Ironman, Floor, and Ocasio, all kind of played on the same teams back when I was here as the defensive coordinator. And now, you know what, 17, 18 years later, they're coming back in the Hall of Fame. So it kind of just means that I'm getting old, I guess.
We won't even go there for either one of us. It's a 4 o'clock kickoff, by the way, and we'll have all the coverage on radio at 3:30 and TV coverage and everything else that we have. It's always a big weekend, and you know, there's always pressure on you guys, but there's nothing different with IUP football. We've been nationally ranked for so long. It goes on. You're going to get a shot each and every week, aren't you?
Well, you know, just like Mercyhurst, they've been about a 500 team the last 2 years. And they probably played their best game both 2 years ago and last year against us. And we're used to that. Teams get up for us. They're going to play, you know, we always talk about what you see on film. When you look at their past games, that's not the same team you're going to see come in here and play us. And they're the perfect example of that. The last 2 years, we very easily could have lost both games. And, you know, we're down 10-7 last year up there at halftime. We happened to have a really good second half to take the game over. And then here 2 years ago, we had to intercept the ball in the last series to secure the win. So they've been really tough, you know, played us very tough the last 2 years.
I remember under Kurt Signetti and the comeback win up there, huh? That was a
that was, we were down 17 points, I believe, going into the 4th quarter, and we forced it into overtime and ended up winning that game. So that was even a situation where we were down big going into the 4th quarter. And they always play tough at Mercyhurst, but they seem to come here and play very well also. And we love that the game is here because we love playing at home in front of our fans, but they seem to come to Moore Stadium and play well. Yeah.
Finally, Tort, what's the injury situation?
Well, we're not going to have Peterson again and Watts at tight end. Arnold got injured a little bit, didn't play a whole lot in the Lockhaven game. He should be back here in the middle of the week. Justice Evans had a slight concussion. We'll know more about him, but hopefully we'll get him back later in the week also.
Okay, sounds good. Kickoff will be at 4 o'clock. Good luck to you, and let's have a Hall of Fame weekend, all right?
Sounds good, Jack. Thanks.
Okay. Coach Tortorella, and of course we'll have all the coverage for you, both radio, TV wise, and everything else. But come to the game too. Be sure to do that. For the coach, this is Jack Benedict. Have a nice evening.